let's go over some practical tips to help you start journaling for anxiety. The first is to make it a habit. Consistency is key. The more you make journaling a part of your daily routine, the more natural it will feel. So set aside a specific time each day to journal, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Secondly, find a quiet space. Choose a quiet, comfortable place where you can write without interruptions. You see, this is your time to focus on yourself. So create an environment that feels peaceful and calming. The next part is don't worry about perfection. One of the biggest obstacles people face with journaling is the fear of not doing it right. Now, the reality is there's no right or wrong way to journal. We want to be able to write whatever comes to mind without overthinking it. Don't judge yourself for what you're writing, and certainly don't hold back. Just let it flow. And the fourth one is to be patient with yourself. If journaling feels awkward or uncomfortable at first, know that that's okay, but it might take a little time to get into the flow, especially if you're not used to writing about your feelings. But I promise you, the more you practice, the easier it will become. So be patient with yourself and trust that this process will get easier over time. I remember a number of years ago when I was going through a particularly rough patch in my life. I was working incredibly long hours, trying to juggle multiple responsibilities and dealing with a lot of uncertainty in certain areas. Every morning I woke up with pretty much a sense of dread. My mind would start racing the moment I opened my eyes, and I'd feel this tightness on my chest that just wouldn't go away. It got to the point where even small tasks felt overwhelming, like I was constantly on the verge of panic. One evening, after another exhausting day, I sat down and decided to write. I didn't have a plan or any idea what I was going to say and write, but I grabbed an old notebook and I just started putting my thoughts down on paper. At first, it felt uncomfortable and strange. I didn't think that writing would help. But as I started to write about my fears, my anxieties, and everything that was weighing me down and just weighing on me, something unexpected happened. I felt a little lighter. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was no longer just carrying everything in my head. So the next day I tried it again, and I wrote about how anxious I felt before going to work and how I feared failing or making mistakes. And instead of just experiencing the anxiety, I was now observing it. The simple act of putting my thoughts on paper created a separation between me and the anxiety. Over time, I began to notice patterns. Certain triggers like upcoming deadlines or difficult conversations were one of the things that was making me anxious. But instead of spiraling into panic, I started to gain a sense of control. I could see these triggers coming, and I was able to prepare myself emotionally. As weeks went by, I made journaling part of my daily routine. It became my way of almost processing what I was going through, a safe space to release my thoughts. Sometimes I'd write about my deepest worries. Other times I would just vent about my day. It didn't matter if my writing was messy or unstructured, which for me, very bizarre because I'm a very structured person, but it was the act of getting it out of my head and onto paper that mattered. Now, I won't say that journaling cured my anxiety, but it helped me transform my relationship with it. So instead of being consumed by my anxious thoughts, I learned to become the observer of them, to question them, and even challenge them. And slowly, the overwhelming power anxiety once had over me began to diminish. You see, for me, journaling has been a game changer. It's almost like just dropping the pounds, the weight. It's helped me organise my thoughts. It's helped me recognise my triggers and approach situations with a clearer, calmer mind. And I know it can do the same for you.